Part 11. Tomb Raider, Marry Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 101. GGG. A woman's eerie laughter began to be heard in the silent space. The voice seemed to come from the netherworld, with a deep chill that made one's spine shiver and chills run through one's bones. The coffin that had been suppressed by Sumu with the blood of the ancestral dragon was actually opened at this moment. The thick coffin board was pushed away and fell to the ground with a loud noise. And inside the coffin, a woman's body was slowly emerging. The female corpse had long hair hanging loose. The hair was very long and almost reached the female corpse's ankles. The dark wind slowly floated up, giving people a very eerie feeling. Her face was pale, her eyes were as black as ink without a trace of white, her lips were scarleter than blood, and her mouth was full of fangs, which was very scary. Sumu didn't expect that the female corpse could actually break through his bloodline seal, and was a little stunned for a moment. As for Fatty Hubei-Wang and the others, they were frightened by the terrifying appearance and aura of the female corpse. "Come out, come out, come out." Fatty Wang stammered and pointed at the female corpse standing in the coffin, with a scared look on his face. The others were not much better, even Shirley Yang's hand holding Sumu began to tremble continuously. "I don't blame them for being so scared, I just blame the female corpse for being so terrifying and cruel. GGG. The female corpse grinned, and the weird laughter in her mouth never stopped. After scanning everyone, her dark eyes without any white eyes fixed directly on Sumu. Immediately, the laughter in the female corpse's mouth stopped abruptly, and the grin on the corner of her mouth instantly turned into a ferocious one. The sudden silence was like the female corpse's withered, pale hands with sharp nails, strangling everyone's throats. Everyone felt a sense of suffocation. However, the next moment, everyone was shocked to find that the female corpse actually jumped out of the coffin and rushed directly towards Sumu. The air, which was like a pool of stagnant water, was suddenly stirred. When everyone came back to their senses, they saw that the female corpse had rushed over in a menacing manner. Although everyone was afraid of the female corpse, they still braced themselves to deal with it. However, they discovered that the target of the female corpse was actually Sumu. Even their repeated attempts to stop her were in vain. The female corpse had already locked onto Sumu. Sumu also knew in his heart that the female corpse was rushing directly towards him, obviously recognizing that he was the one who sealed her in the coffin. This time he came out obviously to take revenge on himself. "Brother Su, be careful." "Husband." Seeing that they could not stop the female corpse at all, Hubei, Shirley Yang and others woke up one after another. It's just that the female corpse was too fast and was approaching Sumu in the blink of an eye. Coaxing kicks and fights. When Sumu saw the female corpse coming towards him, he kicked it directly towards the female corpse with coaxing kick. His coaxing kick was already perfect. Although he couldn't kick the big spider before, he couldn't kick it against this female corpse. But it was more than enough. After all, Coaxing's kicking fight was used to deal with evil spirits. As soon as Sumu kicked it, the female corpse that had just approached was kicked away by Sumu. After letting out a sharp and ear-piercing scream, the female corpse flew out. It was only after they were far away that they stopped. Sumu was delighted. Coaxing's kicking fight was really effective against Zhongzi. "This is the kicking star of our mountain-moving clan. My husband actually does it too." When Shirley Yang saw Sumu using coaxing kickboxing, she recognized at a glance that it was her family's secret skill. But she couldn't understand it. It was clear that Sumu had not been able to learn coaxing kickboxing for many years before, but she didn't expect it now. He learned it and seemed to be more powerful. Those who didn't come thought too much, but Sumu and the female corpse were fighting again on the other side. The female corpse was not willing to be kicked away once, and screamed and rushed towards Sumu again. Her hatred for Sumu was greater than her fear of Sumu's power, so when she rushed towards Sumyu again, Sumyu kicked her again. Coaxing kicks and fights. History is always surprisingly similar. Before the female corpse could even get close to Sumyu, he was already kicked away by him. This time, before the female corpse could launch its own attack, Sumyu had already taken the initiative to chase after the female corpse. Continuously performing coaxing kicked and fought, but the female corpse could only make piercing screams, and was tortured to death by Sumyu. After being kicked far away again, the female corpse looked at Sumyu's dark eyes with nothing but deep-seated hatred. There was still endless fear. She glanced around and saw Shirley Yang and others in the distance. The female corpse felt that Sumyu was difficult to deal with, and was ready to put aside the idea of dealing with Sumyu, and then paid attention to Shirley. Yang Huba and others were on their bodies. So when Sumyu was chasing the female corpse directly gave up the confrontation with Sumyu and rushed towards Shirley Yang and the others in panic. For the female corpse, as long as it is not that men who have the power to deal with her, these ordinary people are no match for her. GGG. The female corpse let out a weird laugh again, and when she looked at Shirley Yang and the others, her eyes were filled with pride. These people will be torn to pieces by her in no time. If you can't kill that man, then use the blood of these people to extinguish the anger in her heart. The female corpse laughed and jumped directly towards Shirley Yang. However, in the next second, she flew out again. Coaxing kicks and fights. Shirley Yang, who also had coaxing kick fighting, gave the female corpse a flying kick, and kicked the female corpse away. Sumyu, who followed closely, quickly caught up and headed towards the female corpse, used the second stage of the mountain moving stunt, a series of kicks. The female corpse was kicked continuously and had no chance or energy to fight back. Sumyu hit the female corpse hard with every kick. When the last blow fell, the female corpse flew directly backwards and hit the stone wall hard. She couldn't get up for a long time. She was obviously seriously injured. Everyone who saw the scene was stunned. The fierce female corpse they were afraid of was so easily killed. Sumyu was seriously injured, which was unbelievable. Shirley Yang was even more surprised. This is actually a series of kick fights. A series of kicking fights? What is that? Hu Bae Wang Fatty and the others looked at Shirley Yang with puzzled faces, their eyes full of doubts. Tomb Raider, Marry Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 102. A series of kicking fights? What is that? Hu Bae Wang Fatty and the others looked at Shirley Yang with puzzled faces, their eyes full of doubts. This is the second level of our mountain moving stunt coaxing kick fight, a chain kick fight, explained Shirley Young. The coaxing kick fight is a move specially used by our Banshan clan to deal with Zongzi. The move my husband and I used to kick away the female corpse just now was the coaxing kick fight, and the move that was used to injure the female corpse later was the serial kick fight. Even I don't know how to do this trick, but I didn't expect that my husband actually learned it. Shirley Yang looked at Sumyu in surprise and said. Just when Shirley Yang and Hu Bai were explaining their mountain-moving skills, the female corpse staggered up from the ground. She seemed to be enraged by the series of blows, and rushed towards Shirley Yang and the others again without caring. However, just as she was rushing over, she was caught by Sumyu. Sumyu seemed to be able to see her fear for him in those dark pupils. However, Sumyu just showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth, and then used a series of kicks on her without mercy again. Bang bang bang. A series of muffled sounds made people feel uncontrollably frightened. The fact that this female corpse could persist at Sumyu's feet for so long shows how ferocious and tenacious she is. Sumyu's series of attacks landed on the female corpse without fail, and his set of coaxing kicks and chain kicks were as standard as a textbook. Everyone watching on the sidelines was amazed. The surprise in Shirley Yang's eyes was too much to hide, and she had a new understanding of Sumyu's abilities. My husband is indeed a great person. This set of mountain moving stunts was actually more slippery than what she, an Orthodox descendant, could use. She really didn't choose the wrong person when she chose him as her husband. Sumyu's attack was so fierce that he left no room for it. Using a set of coaxing kicks, Sumyu directly took out the light sword from the Sumuru's space, and the cold light of the sword directly stabbed the female corpse in the head. He was ready to fight quickly and get rid of the female corpse quickly. However, just when Sumyu's lightsaber was about to pierce the female corpse's head, the female corpse suddenly made a strange move in the midst of this crisis. A cold and strange smile appeared at the corner of the female corpse's mouth, and then her ankle-length hair actually started to move on its own. The long hair quickly wrapped around Sumyu. Part of it wrapped around the sword body and Sumyu's arm, trying to block the lightsaber's attack and control Sumyu's movements. Some of them gathered together, stretched straight and turned into a sharp weapon like a sword, and stabbed directly towards Sumyu, attacking and defending very quickly. An ordinary person would definitely be caught off guard and be entangled in the body by the hair that looked like a living creature, strangled to death. However, she was facing Sumyu. The Hangong sword in Sumyu's hand was an extremely sharp weapon. When the hair wrapped around the sword, it actually broke into two pieces, making it impossible to wrap around it. The female corpse was frightened and angry, and she let her hair wrap around Sumyu's body even more. However, there was no way Sumyu would let him succeed. Sumyu turned his wrist and held the light sword directly in his hand. The strand of hair that turned into a sharp blade and tried to kill Sumyu was cut off by the sword flower and turned into a bunch of gray-black hair like withered grass and scattered on the ground. As soon as her hair was broken, the female corpse let out a miserable howl as if she had been severely injured. Sumyu took this opportunity to use Hongguang to directly cut off the hair that was wrapped around his body. Suddenly, all the long black hair of the female corpse was cut off by Sumyu. The female corpse even covered her head and howled in pain. "Go back to hell." A hint of coldness flashed in Sumyu's eyes, and he swung the long sword in his hand and cut off the head of the female corpse. Plop! The headless female corpse fell directly to the ground. This time she was really dead. Sumyu looked at the withered hair next to the female corpse's head, and couldn't help but murmur to herself. Why does this female corpse look so much like the forbidden woman in Tomb Raider's notes? Sumyu was still wondering when he saw a white ball of light slowly falling from the body of the female corpse, and then the system's mechanical prompt sounded in his mind. Ding! A drop was detected nearby. Would you like to pick it up? Pick up. Sumyu couldn't wait to look through the dropped attributes, but was surprised to find that this was actually a rare mission-attributed light group. After fusing the light group, he knew what the mission of this mission-attributed light group was. Mission: the conspiracy to find the Queen Mother of the West. Process 1/7. Sumyu frowned, feeling that she was completely confused. The conspiracy to find the Queen Mother of the West? What the hell is this mission? Memories of the three Queen Mother of the West surged in Sumyu's mind. The memory of the words was also extracted by Sumyu. However, those memories made Sumyu even more confused. Isn't the Queen Mother of the West from the tomb robbing notes? How could it appear here? Sumyu's eyes inadvertently glanced at the hair scattered on the ground. Reminded me of my suspicion just now. The female corpse really looked like the forbidden woman in the tomb robbing notes. Now the mission light group she dropped was to find the conspiracy of the Queen Mother of the West. Both of them were related to tomb robbing. Is it related to notes? Is it possible that this is actually a fused world? The characters in Tomb Raider's notes and even the big tombs are actually in this world. This idea shocked Sumyu. He always thought that this was a simple world of tomb robbing with ghosts blowing lights. But what happened now made him feel that things seemed to have become more interesting. However, Sumyu looked at the 1/7 task progress of the system prompt sound, and was a little confused about what was going on, so start asking the system in your mind. System, what's going on with this task process? Does this mean that I have to complete 6 missions to find the location of Queen Mother of the West? Sumyu was typing the system in his mind, but the system seemed to have crashed. There was no movement at all. Sumyu had no choice but to put this task aside for now. They have already come this far. As long as they continue, if you continue walking, you might encounter some other clues, just let everything take its course. Thinking of this, Sumyu completely ignored this task. At this time, Shirley, Yang Hebei and the others also rushed over. Xuemu Liyang still checked Sumyu's safety immediately. After confirming that there was no problem, he turned his attention to the female corpse on the ground. The female corpse was decapitated by Sumyu's sword. At this moment, the separation of the corpse looked a little bit horrible. But along the way, everyone saw more strange things, and naturally they got used to it a little bit. Although they were afraid of the female corpse before, they were only afraid of the ferocious attack power of the female corpse. Now she is afraid of it. If you are completely dead, there is naturally nothing to be afraid of. Awesome, brother, don't say anything, just one word, I'm convinced. Hubei patted his chest and gave a thumbs up to Sumyu. You must know that Sumyu killed the super large spider by himself. Although they also helped, it was mainly Sumyu who relied on him. At this moment, Sumyu also killed this rice dumpling by himself. This is not a strong word. We have sent it, this time we have sent it. While Hubei and Sumyu were talking, Fatty Wang's voice came from behind. Fatty Wang, who had arrived late, had something in his hand. It was jade white and very beautiful. Fatty Wang had a look of joy on his face. The appearance makes people more curious about what he is holding in his hand. Fat man, what are you holding in your hand? Hubei asked curiously. Fatty Wang looked happy, walked over and spread out the things in his hands so that everyone could see. It turned out to be a jade garment as thin as cicada wings. Sumyu took a look. I felt that this thing seemed a bit familiar, a bit like the jade clothes worn by the iron-faced man in the Lu Palace. At this time, Fatty Wang said with some embarrassment. I didn't think that the female corpse was a threat to Sumyu, so I went to dig into her coffin. Hey, I didn't expect that I actually found such a treasure. As he said that, Fatty Wang came forward wisely and handed the jade garment in his hand directly to Sumyu's hand. Hee, I'd better leave this thing to you. After all, you killed the big spider and the female rice dumpling. If it weren't for you, we all would have died here, so I'll give this thing to you. Fat Wang acted very grandly. Of course, if you ignore the strong reluctance in his eyes, it would be more convincing. After handing the jade clothes to Sumyu, Fatty Wang was out of sight and out of mind. He turned around and ran towards the female corpse. Obviously he wanted to check if there was anything valuable on the female corpse. Ding Sishan was also very curious and wanted to go over to observe and learn, so she followed Fatty Wang there. Li Yang was afraid that the female corpse would be in danger if it was not dead, so she followed Fatty Wang and Ding Sishan. After all, she was also someone who knew how to kick and fight, so she could still save lives at critical moments. Sumyu glanced at them, and then he glanced at the jade clothes in his hand and carefully gathered them up. System, could this jade garment be the one in Tomb Raider notes? No respond. System, this jade garment also appeared, so this is really a fusion world, right? Are there characters like those in Tomb Raider notes in this world? Sumyu called the system in his heart, but the system still chose silence is golden. Sumyu was not discouraged. His thoughts turned around a few times in his head, and suddenly he had an idea and directly summoned the system. System, identify this jade garment. Ding. The detection function is turned on and the system is being identified. After identification, this item is jade clothing and the material is meteorite. Sumyu was overjoyed and said to himself, it is indeed so. Meteor jade is the symbol of the Queen Mother of the West. This just confirmed Sumyu's suspicion just now. This world is probably a fusion world. Otherwise, how could things from the world of Tomb Raiders appear here? Thinking of all the unexpected things that had appeared before, Sumu also felt that he had found the reason. However, there seems to be a time difference between the two worlds. The age of the two worlds alone is irrational. How can the two worlds be integrated together? Thinking like this, Sumu felt that there seemed to be something he didn't know yet. He glanced at Hubei, who was looking around, and remembered that he had a deep understanding of the world of tomb robbers, so he called him. Lao Hu, I have something to ask you. Hu. Ba came over as soon as he heard the words, looked at Sumu and said, what's the matter? Sumu looked at him deeply and asked tentatively. Do you know Wu Tianzhen? _ You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 103. Lao Hu, do you know Wu Tianzhen? Sumu spoke. Hubei looked puzzled and said, who is that? Sumu frowned, not expecting Hubei to react like this. He didn't look like he was lying, so he really didn't know Wu Tianzhen. Sumu asked again, what about Fatty Wang? Hubei glanced at Sumu strangely, then pointed to the side and Nunu said. Now, isn't it right there? Sumu was speechless. He glanced at Fatty Wang, who was vigorously turning over the corpse. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. It's not Fatty Wang, it's, oh, forget it. Sumu gave up worrying about this answer and chose to give up the explanation directly. He was thinking about it in his mind. If calculated according to this era, Wu Tianzhen was probably still a little kid at this moment. It was understandable that Hubei didn't recognize him. He thought about it and decided to ask someone else. So Sumu continued to ask tentatively, then do you know Wu San's Hung? Sumu carefully looked at the changes in Hubei's expression. When he talked about Wu San's Hung, it was obvious that Hubei's expression changed. Sure enough, Hubei gave an affirmative answer the next moment. Wu San's Hung? I know. He is the third son of Wu Logu, the Wu family of the fifth family of the Nine Gates. Of course I know. Do you still know the Nine Gates? Sumu was really shocked this time. He didn't expect that Jimin really existed in this world, and Hubei actually knew about Jimin. I know, is this weird? Hubei looked at Sumu suspiciously, a little confused. Is it really so surprising that he knows about the Nine Gates? He doesn't know any big secrets about the existence of the Nine Gates, right? Sumu coughed and relieved. Embarrassed for a moment, Hubei just shook his head and said nothing when he heard Hubei ask this question. Hubei didn't care about his expression, and just said with an indifferent expression. I only know a little bit about them. After all, they are a big sect and a family with a big heritage. People like us can't compare with them. Hubei didn't feel cold to them at all, but he felt a little embarrassed when he spoke. Sumu thought about it and asked tentatively. Then do you know the Zhang family? Do you know Zhang Kailing? Hubei nodded, his expression changed from the indifferent expression before, and instead he said with a look of admiration. You know, Zhang Kailing is a character, and his fighting skills are outstanding. Hubei kept talking for a long time, all exaggerating how powerful he was. Sumu was confused when he heard that. So, you know about Jimin, you know about the Zhang family, you know about Zhang Kailing, why don't you tell me? Sumu complained with a bitter look on his face. Hubei rolled his eyes at him angrily and said, then you didn't ask me. Sumu was furious. Hubei attacked without giving up. I saw that you were so good at robbing tombs before, and I thought you were related to them and knew everything about those big families. How could I know that you didn't know anything about them? Sumu couldn't laugh or cry. Did he know that this was a fusion world? He did know about the 9 sects, but how dare he imagine that the 9 sects would appear in this world? After getting the answer he wanted, Sumu also figured it out. The mission I got was probably related to Queen Mother 11, and the 1/7 process in the end was probably for Queen Mother 11's jade robe. Thinking of this, Fatty Wang on the side suddenly called out to them. Sumu, Lao Hu, come here quickly, there is something here. Husband, come here quickly. Brother Sumu, please come over and take a look. Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan also shouted to Sumu and the others, asking them to come over and have a look. So Sumu went over with Hubei. What's wrong? Did you find something? Sumu asked. Shirley Yang pointed to the female corpse and said, I found something. Take a look. Sumu stepped forward to take a look and found that it turned out to be a black sheet. It was impossible to tell what it was. Thing. What is this? Hubei and Fatty Wang came forward, their eyes also lingering on the unknown object, with doubts on their faces. Sumu looked carefully and found that this object seemed to be the same as Wu Tianzhen in the Lu Palace in the tomb robbing notes. The piece of Kailanji he got was somewhat similar. However, this piece seemed to be larger than that piece. Sumu was unsure and expressed his guess. I think this thing looks a bit like Kailanji. The unicorn is exhausted. Damn it, is it Kailanji? As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. You must know that Kailanja is a good thing. Kailanja, also known as Sweja. It is a strange thing condensed from the dragon's blood tree. It is said that mortals eat it. It is very miraculous that you can ascend in the daytime, evil things will disperse, and all poisons will not invade you. I don't believe that Sumu can ascend in the daytime, but the effect of expelling evil spirits and detoxifying is definitely not wrong. In short, this thing is a good thing. This is not just a good thing. What a unique treasure. When Hubei and Fatty Wang looked at Kailanji, their eyes were shining, but they all had their own bottom line, and they could still hold back when facing rare treasures. Shirley Yang looked at everyone and said, well, let's draw lots, and whoever catches this thing will give it to him. Kailanji is so important. Shirley Yang also saw that everyone wanted it, so she proposed drawing lots. But unexpectedly, Hubei and Fatty Wang Ding Sishan both wanted it at the same time. Shook his head. I think this thing is most suitable for you. Yes, just keep it yourself. Everyone unanimously decided to give Kailan to Shirley Yang. Sumu on the side saw it, and knew in his heart that they agreed to give such an important thing to Shirley Yang for his sake, and couldn't help but have mixed feelings in his heart. Surely, since they say so, just keep it to yourself first. Sumu did not refuse and asked Shirley Yang to put Kailanja away, but he had another plan in his heart. He now knows that this is a fused world. Then this world has Lu Palace, and there is another piece of Kailanji in King Lu's palace. He will find that piece and give it to them when the time comes. But that piece seems to be smaller than this one, but he doesn't know how to divide it when the time comes. But it's still early. Sumu didn't think much about it. Tell me, why is this female corpse carrying this thing? Fat Wang scratched his head in confusion. He really couldn't figure it out. The key is that it's useless even if you carry it. Others were also very surprised. Hubei glanced at the female corpse on the ground and couldn't help but touch his chin and guessed. Could it be related to the identity of this female corpse? Everyone was stunned and a little suspicious. But they didn't find anything that could prove the identity of the female corpse. The only thing they knew was that this thing came from the Western Zhou dynasty, and they didn't know anything else. No one could guess it, and they were all immersed in their own thoughts for a while. No words were spoken in my thoughts. Forget it, don't think about it, let's take a look at this first. Fat Wang waved his hand and signaled. Everyone looked at him and saw that he was holding a bronze plaque in his hand, which should be what they found before. Hubei took it and looked over it, hoping to find some clues on it. The brand was made of bronze, with some complicated patterns carved on it. There were some ancient characters engraved on one side of the bronze brand. But the characters were scattered in a haphazard manner and looked a bit messy. On the other side was a very simple. The pattern, if you look closely, seems to be like a gate. The door is very big, almost occupying the entire side of the bronze sign. There are also some ant-like little people carved in front of the door. If you look carefully, those little people have their own characteristics. Different actions. Wow, this thing looks weird. Is this door that big? What is this thing? Sumu heard the words and took the bronze sign from Huba's hand. He took it and looked at it carefully. He felt that it looked familiar and couldn't help but let out a sound of surprise. He looked at the door on the back of the bronze sign, and the more he looked at it, the more he looked at it. It felt familiar. Suddenly, I recognized the door. The door on the bronze sign turned out to be a giant bronze door. Ding. Mission prop bronze medal detected. Ding. The conspiracy to find the Queen Mother of the West has been completed 2/7. Please continue to work hard and collect bronze medals. At this moment, the system's mechanical prompt sounded, which also confirmed Sumu's guess. This was indeed the sign about the giant bronze door. At this time, Sumu had already understood in his heart, this ghost tomb and the Queen Mother of the West relationship. Everything is now connected. Sui thought of the story of the Queen Mother of the West and King Mu of Zhou in the legend. It is said that during the heyday of the Western Zhou dynasty, King Mu of Zhou went to the kingdom of the Queen Mother of the West and met the Queen Mother of the West. The two were very happy with each other. However, King Mu of Zhou had to go back to govern his city-state, and Queen Mother of the West felt sad when leaving. She only said that she was the daughter of the Emperor of Heaven and was appointed by fate to guard the Western land. She could not move or leave with King Zhou Mu. She could only play the sheng and drums to bid farewell to King Zhou Mu, and expressed her love for him to King Zhou Mu. King Mu of Zhou was so moved that he erected a stone monument on Mount Yan with the inscription, Mountain of the Queen Mother of the West. He also planted a locust tree on the side of the mountain to keep him company. This story shows that there is a relationship between the Queen Mother of the West and King Mu of the Zhou dynasty, so it is not difficult to understand that something belonging to the Queen Mother of the West appears in the tomb of the Western Zhou dynasty. Sumu knew that in the legend the Queen Mother of the West was a stupid woman who was deceived into love by King Zhou Mu. But now it seems that the Queen Mother of the West is not as stupid as everyone thinks. In fact, she also left behind a backup plan, and these backup plans are on the bodies of these female corpses. After thinking about everything, Sumu felt that he was deeply shocked. He didn't expect that he would find such a big thing this time. Husband? Did you discover something? Shirley Yang saw the shocked look on Sumu's face, so she asked. Sumu didn't hide anything, nodded and replied. I know what this thing is. Tomb Raider, marry Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 104. I know what this thing is. Sumu's words attracted everyone's attention. Hubei and Fatty Wang stared at Sumu, waiting for his answer. This thing should be a clue about the tomb of Queen Mother of the West. Tomb of Queen Mother of the West. When Hubei and Fatty Wang heard about this for the first time, they couldn't help but be surprised. They felt that it seemed to be something extraordinary. Sumu told some of the stories he knew about the Queen Mother of the West, as well as some of his guesses. Everyone stopped and looked shocked. Well, according to what you said, this place is probably related to Queen Mother of the West, so. Fatty Wang suddenly had an idea and made a bold guess in his mind. Everyone looked at him, wondering what he was going to say. Fatty Wang didn't show off, and directly expressed his guess, saying, since there is Kailanji here, will there be Kailanji in other large tombs laid out by the Queen Mother of the West? Everyone was stunned, and then they felt that what Fatty Wang said seemed to make some sense. Why do you think the key points are different from ours? Hubei couldn't help but complained. Fatty Wang laughed and said, it doesn't matter if it's different, as long as it's useful, right? It is indeed possible. Sumu said. Anyway, he knew that there was one in King Lu's palace, and maybe there were other big tombs as well. Everyone checked again to see if there were any missing things or clues. After confirming that they had all been checked, everyone was ready. Moving on. Sumu asked Shirley Yang to eat the kailan first. After all, it was a good thing. Legend has it that it is a good treasure that can soar in the daytime. Shirley Yang ate it without much hesitation. Kailan, the taste of the chicken was not very good, it was a bit bitter, but Shirley Yang still ate it bit by bit. After eating, Shirley Yang couldn't help but check the changes in herself, but she found that there were no changes at all. No, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Sumu smiled and said, it can't be so fast. Even if you take medicine, it still takes time for the medicine to take effect. With that said, everyone stopped paying attention. Everyone continued walking, and when they were tired, they stopped to rest for a while. The sudden accident made everyone's hearts go up to the extreme. After they put it down now, Fatty Wang finally remember the purpose of their coming here before? We haven't found the golden jade yet. Fatty Wang was still thinking about it in his heart. He moved, feeling the fragrance still permeating the air, and couldn't help but feel a little moved. Before, everyone was busy beating spiders and making rice dumplings, and there was no time for the fragrance of gold, jade, etc. Now smell it, feeling the strong fragrance, they had the urge to continue searching. After enough rest, everyone continued to set off. Fatty Wang kept smelling the fragrance coming from a distance, and walked towards the place where the fragrance was getting stronger, and finally there the place with the strongest fragrance allowed Fatty Wang to find the rumored golden jade first. The fat man couldn't wait to pick up the golden jade. It was soft to the touch and the fragrance was compelling. At first glance, it was a valuable treasure. Hey, I'll put it away first. As Fatty Wang said, he carefully put the golden jade into the box and stuffed it into his backpack. No one else had any objections. Anyway, this adventure would definitely yield a lot, so no one paid too much attention. Collect it? After finding Jinzionjiao, everyone decided to continue walking and look for other treasures. So they all walked down the cave with flashlights. After walking for an unknown amount of time, everyone once again came to a very open space paved with blue stones. The floor tiles and the underworld beasts guarding the front all indicate that this is another underworld palace. Everyone has encountered an underworld palace before, but it is completely different from the one in front of them. Everyone stepped forward to check the tomb door. From the carvings on it, we found that this one is probably also the Hades Hall of the Western Zhou Dynasty tomb. The entrance to the Hades Hall is an oversized boulder door. It was so heavy that even if Sumu went up, it would be difficult to push it open. What should we do now? The door won't open and we can't get in. Ding Sishan looked at the huge stone door with some distress and muttered. Everyone lowered their heads in deep thought, thinking of ways to open the door. Shirley, Yang, Hubei and the others began to search around for the mechanism to open the tomb door. However, when they found it, they realized that it seemed that even if they found it, it would be of no use. Because the above arrangement is completely messy and has no logic at all. For a moment, everyone couldn't help but feel a little discouraged. Sumu was recalling in his mind that this kind of stone gate seemed to be somewhat similar to the one in the TV plot. The place they found was just a fake, and it seemed that all they needed to enter was finding a spring. Sumu began to search carefully. He had amazing ears. While slowly observing the surroundings, he also used his super ears to listen to some small sounds. Soon, the sound of water flowing appeared in Sumu's ears. He quickly walked towards the place where the sound came from, and sure enough, in an extremely inconspicuous corner, he found a spring that was bubbling out. "Why is there a spring here?" Fatty Wang said in surprise. Hu Ba stepped forward to take a look, and replied thoughtfully. "It looks a bit like a coffin spring to me, but it contains the essence of the spring, and this kind of spring will never dry up. In Feng Shui, it is a sign of great storage." Hu Ba's explanations made everyone a little confused. Fatty Wang simply said, "This is all you can say. If you have the ability, you can find out the mechanism." After looking for clues just now, Wang Fat was panting from exhaustion. He was fanning himself with his hands and still felt a little thirsty. Sumu knew the key to this spring, so he took the opportunity to fool around and said, "I heard old Hu say that this spring is so mysterious, maybe it really has some key to it. Fatty, aren't you thirsty? How about giving it a try? Maybe if you take a sip of spring water to quench your thirst, then the door will open by itself." Fat Wang was really thirsty at this moment. He glanced at the gate of Hades' palace and then at the bubbling spring water. He thought he wanted to drink water anyway, so he might as well give it a try. So he really had the courage to go up there. The fat man stepped forward, held a handful of spring water in both hands, and drank it without caring. Everyone except Sumu had a look of shock on their faces, but even more shocked the shocking thing was yet to come. Just as Fatty Wang drank the spring water, the huge stone door of the Hades palace, which had been tightly closed, actually slowly opened after a loud rumbling sound. Everyone looked at this scene. Everyone is stunned. Underscore. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 105. Just as Fatty Wang drank the spring water, the huge stone door of the Hades palace, which had been tightly closed, actually slowly opened after a loud rumbling sound. Everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. Fatty Wang came to his senses first and admired Sumu so much that he fell to the ground. "Brother Su, you are really good at predicting things. You said all of this correctly." Hu Bai also teased Brother Su, "Really, you might as well change your career to become a fortune teller." Everyone has become numb to Sumu's knowledge of things. Most people would have thought that the key to opening the gate of the Hades would be in an inconspicuous spring. Only a god like Sumu dared to think that. The huge stone door has been opened. Everyone was ready to take a look into the Hades palace. At the entrance of the Hades palace, everyone first used flashlights to shine inside from the entrance. Under the light, they could vaguely see the general furnishings in the Hades palace. The entrance to the Hades palace, it is a platform surrounding the Hades palace. The entire interior of the Hades palace is a concave-shaped building. In the center of the Hades palace is a stone platform slightly higher than the ground. On the stone platform is a coffin. "Let's go in now, everyone, be careful." Hu Ba walked in front, staring straight ahead, and gave instructions to the people behind him. The group of people carefully walked into the Hades palace. When they walked in, they discovered that there was a cave inside the Hades palace. The space inside the Hades hall was much wider than what they thought they saw outside. There were 8 stone pillars around it. Everyone used the torches in their hands to illuminate the surroundings, and they could vaguely see the stone pillars through the weak firelight. Very tall. And those stone pillars seemed to have been carved into the shape of some kind of creature. This Hades palace is so big. Ding Sishan looked at the top of her head by the firelight, then looked around, and couldn't help but exclaimed. This place seems to be much larger than the Hades palace she encountered before. Even standing in it and talking feels a bit, there was a slight echo. Hu Bai held a torch in his hand and found 2 torches embedded in the stone wall at the entrance to the Hades palace. He lit them conveniently. Suddenly, the lighting in the Hades palace was better than it seemed just now. More. But any bit of light is just a drop in the bucket, and most of the space in the entire Hades palace is still in darkness. Sumu recalled it in his memory and found the memory of this episode in the TV plot. He raised his head and looked at the Hades palace. At the top of the temple, he knew there was something there. Lao Hu, give me the torch. Sumu reached out to Hu Bae to ask for a torch, and looked fixedly at the position in front of their heads. Then he raised it and put it away, and threw the torch out with a little force. Fatty King Hu Bae and the others had not yet after reacting, the torch in Sumu's hand had already flown into the air. As the firelight shone, they seemed to see something on top of the dome. Poof! The wooden handle of the torch made a crisp sound when it hit the metal, and then entered the copper basin hanging above. Boom! In an instant, the copper basin was ignited, and the fire instantly illuminated the entire Hades palace. Only then did everyone realize that there was actually a huge brazier hanging there, and what Sumu had done just now was to light the brazier. Damn it, Sumu, you are so awesome, you can even find the brazier in that position. Fat Wang was shocked. Apparently what happened in front of him was unexpected. Others also thought that Sumu was very powerful. It would be hard for anyone to imagine that there would be a brazier hanging in the middle of the entire Hades palace. Sumu he didn't say much. He knew the plot and knew the location of the brazier, but he couldn't explain it clearly. He could only guess it. Now the entire Hades palace became as bright as day because of the blazing fire in the brazier. Everyone only then did he begin to look at everything around him. The Hades palace was very beautifully decorated. The 8 surrounding pillars were carved with various forms of tomb beasts. There was also a beautifully painted coffin placed on the central stone platform. Everyone came when they arrived at the coffin. Shirley Yang and Ding Xishan circled around the coffin and said, "This is a tomb from the Western Zhou dynasty, but this coffin is a Tang coffin." Tang coffin? Is it really? Everyone has some vague guesses in their minds, but now they have only seen the surface of the coffin, and all guesses can only be made after waiting for the coffin to be opened. Now that he decided to open the coffin, Sumu immediately started giving instructions to everyone. Fatty, you go to the southeast corner and light a candle. Old Hu, you come with me to find the mechanism to open the coffin. After saying that, Fatty Wang nodded and took out the Fengzi plate, found the southeast corner, walked to the corner and lit a candle. Sumu and Hu Bai began to look for the key to open the coffin. The agency. Shirley Yang and Ding Xishan went to the side and began to look for clues on the murals. Several people began to divide the work and cooperate, and slowly began to search in the Hades palace. Sumu and Hu Bai surrounded the coffin was carefully inspected. There were many complicated patterns carved on the coffin. Although the paint color on it had become a little dim after time, it was not difficult to see its exquisite prototype. Hu Bai's hand carefully examined the coffin. He groped around on the coffin, and the exquisite carvings made people marvel at them. His movements were very gentle, just like handling fragile treasures, caressing them inch by inch. Suddenly, his hand stopped and his gaze turned towards. I looked over at the position of my subordinates. "What's wrong, old Hu? Did you find something?" Sumu was standing on the other side and couldn't help but ask when he saw him squatting down and not moving. But as soon as he said the words, he seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly walked towards him. "I seem to have discovered something," Hu Bai answered. Sumu thought that this was indeed the case. In the original work, Hu Bai found the mechanism. He walked over and took a look, and sure enough, Hu Bai's hand was touching a groove. It was obvious that it is the mechanism that opens the coffin. The card slot is in a piece of carving. It is difficult to tell that there is a card slot there if you look at it with your eyes. But Hu Bai touched it with his hands, so he felt it as soon as he touched it. It seems that this is it, but judging from the position and shape of the card slot, a key should be needed. Sumu acted very calmly and explained calmly. Key. At this time, Fatty Wang also came over. He was surprised that they had found the mechanism so quickly. Sumu nodded, pointed to the shape of the card slot, and said, "I think it should be a pen-shaped key." Pen, Hubei and Fatty Wang were both stunned for a moment. They didn't know why Sumu was so sure. Found it? We found something. At this moment, Ding Sishan, who was inspecting the mural next to her, exclaimed, holding a pen in her hand. Damn it, so awesome, Fat Wang exclaimed. Ding Sishan trotted over and took the pen she found. Sumu took the pen and put it into the card slot. The position was just right. It was the key to this mechanism. Everyone looked at what happened. God, Sumu feels a little numb. How many times has this happened? Such a miraculous performance has now given everyone some immunity. Okay, let's open the coffin now. _ You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 106. The pen is loaded into the card slot. Sumu gently rotated the mechanism. Accompanied by the click-click sound of the mechanism turning, everyone involuntarily held their breath and concentrated, watching Sumu's movements intently. Sumu slowly turned the mechanism. When the pen turned from the vertical position to the horizontal position, everyone saw a bronze medal slowly spit out from the position above the mechanism. Hubei stepped forward and shined a flashlight on the sign. The light illuminated everything on it. Are there words on it? Hubei said. Everyone came forward to look around. Shirley Yang said suspiciously, is this small seal script? It seems to be really Xiaozuan. Ding Sishan looked at it and confirmed. What small seal script? Fat Wang was puzzled. Shirley Yang explained, Xiaozuan, also known as Qin Swan, is a unified script implemented after the Qin dynasty unified the 6 countries. Everyone looked at the font on the bronze medal. Fatty Wang was not in a good position and couldn't see the writing clearly, so he asked. What does it say? Shirley Yang held a flashlight in her hand to illuminate the writing on it more clearly, and then explained. This paragraph comes from historical records. Xibo Gai was imprisoned in Yali for 50 years after he came to the throne. Gai Yi's 8 hexagrams were the 64 hexagrams. Xibo died and was buried in Bai. What does this mean? Fat Wang didn't understand. Shirley Yang glanced at him and continued to explain. This means that there was once a man named Xibo who was imprisoned in Yali, where he deduced the 64 hexagrams, and was buried in a place called Bai after his death. Through research, Li Chunfeng created and transformed Xibo's tomb. But this word is only half written, and the other half should be on the back of the sign. When everyone heard this, they were about to squat down and take a look, but Sumu stepped forward and directly pulled out the bronze medal. The air seemed to be stagnant for a moment. When everyone looked at Sumu with shocked and doubtful eyes, Sumu didn't panic at all. Look, there are no words below. Sumu raised the bronze medal in his hand and showed them the back of it. Indeed, there was not even a single word on it. However, at this moment, there was a muffled sound at the entrance of the underworld palace, and a stone door quickly descended. They came down. Everyone looked back at the closed stone door, and then at Sumu, who was still holding the bronze medal. They were speechless. Shirley Yang reached out and pinched Sumu, and said strangely, what are you doing? How can they get out when the stone gate is lowered? Looking at Shirley Yang's anxious look, her little face turned red. Sumu felt extremely calm and even wanted to laugh. He was about to comfort Shirley Yang. At the same time, there was another click, click, click sound from the ground. Everyone took a step back and saw a stone slab moved away from the ground in front of the coffin. A stone slab slowly rose up from the bottom, and the stone platform above is a chessboard. What is this? Everyone cautiously stepped forward to check the chessboard. Only when they stepped forward did they realize that there were many chess pieces placed on the chessboard. This is an unfinished chess game. Hubei glanced at the chessboard and sighed. Even the blind people saw that this was an unfinished game. Fatty Wang retorted, "Tell me, why is there an extra game of chess in this inexplicable way?" "Don't worry, it's not a bad thing," Sumu said. Fatty Wang was speechless and said, "We are all locked in, is this a good thing? It's all your fault. Why are you so stupid and smoking something when you have nothing to do?" Sumu touched his nose awkwardly and chose not to respond to the question. He can't just say that he knows that another mechanism will appear when the sign is pulled out, right? There is a chess piece there. Sumu pointed to the edge of the chessboard, where a black chess piece was quietly placed. At this time, everyone also saw that there was another chess piece next to the chessboard. Obviously, this chess piece was the key to this mechanism. It seems that the owner of this tomb does not want us to die immediately. Sumu looked at the only chess piece and sighed, "We are only given a chance to make one move. Is this because the owner of the tomb wants to test us?" "Test?" Fatty Wang looked confused, then glanced at everyone and said, "Let's take the test. Is anyone among us good at backgammon?" "Backgammon? Who?" Ba couldn't help but rolled his eyes after hearing Fatty Wang's words and said, "Do you know numbers? Have you ever seen that backgammon game with so many pieces? This is Go. Ah. Go." Fatty Wang scratched his head, smiled awkwardly, and said, "I can't do it anyway, who of you can?" No one answered. Hubei looked at the chess game with a troubled expression, and Sumu also touched his chin while looking at the chess game and thinking. Based on his own understanding of this chess game, Sumu felt that this kind of chess game that could not continue the cycle of 3 calamities was nothing more than a chess game. Just choose a draw. Not only Sumu thought so, Shirley Yang on the side also had an idea and guessed the purpose of the tomb owner. "Do you know the story of Song Taizong and Jia Xian playing chess?" Shirley Yang asked. Everyone shook their heads, expressing their ignorance. Shirley Yang smiled and said, "When Song Taizong and Jia Xian played chess, Jia Xian kept giving in to him. After a long time, it became boring. Song Taizong asked Jia Xian to play chess based on his true ability, but Jia Xian did not dare to beat him, so Song Taizong deliberately issued an edict. He said that if he lost again, he would be released from the chess order. Jia Xian did not dare to lose again, but he also did not dare to win against Song Taizong. He was forced to have no choice but to set up a draw with a cycle of 3 calamities. That kind of chess is the same as this game, it has the same principle. Therefore, I think the owner of the tomb wants us to play a draw." Shirley Yang felt that she had guessed the purpose of the tomb owner, but she was a little unsure. After thinking about it, she said, "This is just my guess. If it is wrong, it may trigger some mechanism." Everyone was silent for a while, and Sumu took Shirley Yang's hand and said, "I believe you." Hubei also said, "I believe you too." Ding Sishan also nodded, "She couldn't think of it when a better way comes up, I naturally choose to take a gamble." Fatty Wang closed his eyes, gritted his teeth, and said, "It's a bet. Come on." Although everyone was worried in their hearts, afraid that the result would be wrong, they had no other better way and could only choose to believe it. Shirley Young's guess. However, Sumu didn't have any worries. He stepped forward and picked up the black chess piece. He found the position of the draw and put the chess piece on it, underscore. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 107. Snap. The chess piece fell on the chessboard. This second seemed to be longer than ever. Although Hubei Wang, Fatty Ding Sishan and others chose to believe in Shirley Yang's judgment, they still couldn't help but hold their breath. Breathing, waiting anxiously for any changes that were about to happen next. Sumu behaved very relaxedly after all. After placing the chess pieces in the draw position, he returned to Shirley Yang very casually. Shirley Yang, he also clenched his hands nervously, and then Sumu grabbed him in his hand. Rest assured, Sumu comforted him. Sure enough, the next second, the dangerous mechanism that everyone was wary of did not appear. Instead, the surrounding stone walls began to slowly fall down. The stone walls slowly sank, revealing countless hidden compartments behind the stone walls. And everyone saw that in those hidden compartments, there were actually many priceless gold, silver, jewelry, antique gold objects. Damn, so many treasures. When Fatty Wong saw the antique goldware exposed, his eyes lit up for a moment, and the smile on his face couldn't be suppressed at all. Everyone was very excited. There were so many things, enough for all of them to share. After experiencing so many dangers, this time the hardships finally came to an end. Sent. Lao Hu, we are really prosperous this time. Fatty Wong shouted in surprise. He was about to step forward to take a look at the antique goldware, but as soon as he took a step, Hu Bei pulled him back. Don't rush to touch the objects in the grid. Be careful and don't touch any mechanism that may kill someone. Hu Bei's reminder also calmed down everyone's excitement a little. What Hu Bei said makes sense. Although money is attractive to people, it must be lived to enjoy it. Shirley Yang also said at this time, you guys don't touch those things in a hurry, let's find the other half of the Dragon Bone book first. Yes, we should look for the Book of Heaven first. Everyone agreed and started looking for the Dragon Bone book on the hidden grids. Sumu actually knew in his heart that the Dragon Bone book was not on those hidden grids. But just like many times before, some words could only be buried in his own heart. Couldn't reveal it. Sumu just let them toss around, and he checked the hidden compartments himself. With so many antique gold items here, wouldn't it be a pity if they really couldn't take them away? So Sumu, thinking that even if there was some kind of mechanism, he would find it first and find a way to destroy it. Then he would take away all the antique gold objects. It would be perfect. Sumu knew the knowledge about the mechanism very well, so he checked the mechanism. It was also very fast. After walking around, it was confirmed that there were no mechanisms on the hidden cells, which made Sumu feel relieved. After taking a look at the others, he found that they were still looking for the whereabouts of the Dragon Bone book. Sumu didn't remind him, but he casually searched back and forth among the hidden compartments around him. He was looking at the antique gold objects, among which there were some more valuable treasures that caught his eye. He took it out and put it into his bag. There was no cover in his actions, he was very generous and casual, and he was quickly noticed by Fatty Wang. Okay, Brother Su, you knew there was no mechanism on the secret compartment without telling me, so you picked out the things and put them away first. Fat Wang pointed at Sumu and angrily scolded him for not fighting. He quickly started looking for good things on the hidden grids. Shirley, Yang Dingxi, Hu Bei, and they happened to look at all the hidden grids. There was nothing there. After discovering the whereabouts of the Dragon Bone book, I couldn't help but feel a little depressed. However, when I turned around, I saw Sumu and Fatty Wang searching for the antique gold objects like bandits entering the village. They couldn't help but be stunned, and then Hu Bei reacted. Cried. Damn it, you two didn't even call me. With that said, he also rushed forward, and together with Fatty King Sumu and the others, they joined in the search for antique gold items. Ding Sishan was a little stunned as she watched the three of them stuffing the hidden items into their bags one by one, as fast as the wind and the remaining clouds. Shirley Yang looked at the few people angrily and amusedly, sighed helplessly and let them go. After the search was almost done, a few people remembered that they had not found a way out yet. Sumu glanced at the surrounding walls and said, Lao Hu, do you think these 8 walls are very similar to Chi Men Dunjia? Sumu reminded Hu Bei that Hu Bei began to carefully observe the weirdness on the 8 walls. But after a moment, Hu Bei saw the secret here. These 8 walls are indeed related to Chi Men Dunjia, you see, These 8 walls correspond to the 8 doors of Xiu, Shen, Shang, Du, Jing, Death, Jing, and Kai in Qi Men Dun Xia. These 8 walls must be solved. Only the door can open the mechanism. Maybe the Dragon Bone book is in that mechanism. How do you drive it? Hurry up! Fatty Wang urged impatiently. Hu Bie glared at him and said, "Why are you so anxious? Do you think it's that easy?" He looked around again and then said, "Among these 8 gates, half are the gates of life and half are the gates of death." Half and half? Isn't that easy to find? Fatty Wang said easily. Hu Bei said, "How can it be so easy? In fact, it's half for each." People who are roughly familiar with Kimen Dunjia will think that there will be no problem if they find the Shenman. In fact, this is not the case. Hu Bei paused, looked a little solemn, and said, "If that's true, then he really fell into the tomb owner's scheme." Why, people don't understand. If you look at the agencies we encountered before, they are almost all similar, that is, the owner of the tomb will not directly kill us at once, but he will not easily give us a way out. Everyone thought about it and it seems that this is really the case. The mechanism at the entrance to the Hades Palace is like this, and the unfinished chess game is like this. It seems that there is a way out in the predicament. But that way out is hidden. If you can't find it, it depends on your own ability. Therefore, according to the meaning of the 9 palaces and 8 gates, the key now is to first find the bright weapons corresponding to these 8 gates, so as to unlock the mechanism. Shirley Yang also said at this time, "I actually know a little bit about the 8 gates. Among the 8 gates, Kai, Xiu, and Sheng are the 3 auspicious gates. Death, Jing, and injury are the 3 unlucky gates. Duman and Jingmen are the middle gates. But so what? How can I go up against these bright weapons?" The theory of the 8 gates actually comes from the theory of the number of the 9 palaces, and there is a corresponding relationship among them. Hu Bei looked at the surrounding walls and explained the 9 palaces are the 9 directions pointed to by the number of the 9 books. Put the 8 gates in Kimen Dunjia into the 9 palaces. Hu Ba's eyes became bright and firm, and all the knowledge about Kimen Dunjia came to his mind. Xiamenkan is the first palace, Death Gate is the second palace, Shangmen is the third palace, Dumenxun is the fourth palace, fifth is the middle palace in the middle, Kaimengan is the sixth palace, Jingmendui is the seventh palace, Shenmenjin is the eighth palace, Jingmenli is the ninth palace, that is the 9 palaces and 8 gates. Everyone listened to Hu Bei's series of remarks. Although they felt that they didn't understand anything, they felt that they were very awesome. Shirley Yang could understand a little bit, so she asked, "What you said didn't tell you which disciple is a student and which one is a dead student. How do we know the locations of the 9 palaces and the 8th gate if it's not mentioned?" Hu Ba glanced at her, smiled confidently, and said, "This is simple, there is a formula called, 2 and 4 are shoulders, 6 and 8 are feet, 3 on the left and 7 on the right, wear 9 shoes and 1, 5 in the center." What? He's talking about numbers. Shirley Yang understood what Hu Bei meant. Fatty Wang looked confused. What do you mean? Why can't I understand the numbers mentioned here? As he said that, Fatty Wang said to Hu Bei, "Lao Hu, can you lower your knowledge reserve rate a little so that we can understand it?" Hu Bei was speechless and couldn't help but roll his eyes. Sumu almost laughed out loud, but held it in her mouth, not having the heart to hit Fatty Wang. Hu Bei was helpless. In order to make everyone, especially Fatty Wang, understand, he had to go to the coffin in person. After checking the position of the coffin, Hu Ba found that the head of the coffin was facing the door. In order to explain to Fatty Wang what he was talking about, he pointed at the coffin and said, "Let me tell you this, the heads of the coffins in the tomb are always facing the door. The so-called wearing 9 shoes means that the position of the head is 9 and the position of the feet is 1. The corresponding position of the head 9 is Li, and the position of the feet is 1. The corresponding side is gone, with the shoulders on both sides of the head and the legs above the feet, so the two sides of Li are Sun and Kun, and the two sides of Gan are Zhen and Jian. 3 on the left and 7 on the right mean that the left is 3 earthquakes, Kidian on the right, which is what we are looking for. 9 palaces and 8 gates. So complicated? So how should we find the corresponding artifacts now? Fat Wang glanced at the exposed objects placed on the hidden compartments. What they had picked up before were some jewelry and gold items that were easy to carry. None of the exposed objects had been touched. Now they were all arranged nicely. How to find so many exposed weapons in their original positions? Sumu watched Hu Ba walk down the stone platform to the hidden compartments, so he also walked over. He saw Hu Ba walking in those hidden compartments. I searched carefully above, and after walking around, I came to a hidden compartment, Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 108. After walking around for a while, Hu Ba came to a hidden grid. Isn't this the bronze bodhisattva? Didn't you say that the ridge is water? This bodhisattva has nothing to do with water, right? Hu Ba carefully observed the bronze statue placed in the hidden grid, and replied without looking back, the water in the ridge is just an appearance. In fact, the real meaning is to stick to the right path and keep the soul in the middle line. He motioned everyone to look at the bronze statue and continued, look at this bodhisattva, wearing a necklace and a Vairocana crown on his head. It is Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. Do you know the legend about Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva? Sumu opened his mouth and answered, it is said that Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva rescued his suffering mother from hell several times, and made a great wish that he would not become a Buddha until hell was empty. Hu Ba nodded and said, that's true. This is exactly in line with the intention here. Hu Ba silently analyzed the location of the door of life and death. He fell silent for a moment, and no one else continued to disturb him. When he raised his head again, Sumu asked, have you thought about it? Hu Ba hesitated when he looked at the bronze statue. He was afraid that if his calculations were wrong, it might bring disaster to everyone. Sumu saw Hu Ba's hesitation, so he stepped forward and encouraged, don't think too much, just follow your own ideas, we all believe in you. Everyone else also expressed their belief in him, which made Hu Ba my confidence doubled, and I finally made up my mind to step forward and gently turn the position of the bronze statue of Bodhisattva. Click. The sound of the machine turning was heard, and everyone watched the Bodhisattva turn around. However, in the next second, a series of strong vibrations suddenly came, almost knocking everyone to the ground. Everyone staggered and finally stood firm. I found that the ground beneath my feet was slowly splitting apart. What's going on? Fatty Wang exclaimed. Sumu said with a solemn face, this should be the timer started. We must find all the bright weapons corresponding to the 9 palaces and 8 gates before the ground is retracted into the wall, otherwise we will all fall down. Everyone looked at the slowly cracking ground and could only see the darkness below, but they could guess without seeing clearly that there must be an abyss below. If they fell, they would definitely end up in pieces. They didn't dare to say more. Thinking about it, everyone began to hurriedly look for the bright weapons in the hidden compartments. Everyone, remember that Jian Kun, Gan Li, Zhen Suan, Zhen Dui, and the 8th palace respectively correspond to heaven, earth, water, fire, wind, thunder, mountains and rivers. Please search according to this, and remember not to find the wrong one, Hu Ba reminded everyone loudly and began to search among the hidden compartments. Everyone is now racing against time. The ground under their feet is constantly receding toward the wall, and the gaps exposed between each piece of ground are also it is getting bigger and bigger, and the dark abyss slowly opens like the mouth of a giant beast, ready to swallow everyone's lives at any time. Among the 5 people, Shirley Yang, and 4 of them one person was responsible for finding a wall, and Sumu was very domineering and took over all 4 walls. Moreover, because of his various attributes, his speed was much faster than the other 4 people. In some higher positions, Sumu also he easily jumped up and turned the mechanisms, and soon all the mechanisms were found by everyone. The vibrations on the ground stopped when everyone turned all the mechanisms, and the ground of the entire tomb also began to slowly drop. The previous chessboard suddenly made a soft sound, and the hidden mechanism was automatically opened. Just when everyone was nervous and alert, a very beautifully crafted metal treasure box actually rose from it. Along with the sound of the mechanism turning, that the treasure box slowly opened, and the contents were revealed to everyone. It was the Dragon Bone book that everyone had been looking for a long time. Felu reminds you, 3 things about reading, collection, recommendation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 109. It's the Dragon Bone Heavenly Book. Everyone was surprised. They didn't expect that the Dragon Bone Heavenly Book was hidden so deeply, and it was finally revealed now. Shirley Yang happily stepped forward and put the Dragon Bone Heavenly Book away. With this Dragon Bone Heavenly Book, you can find the Muchin bead. By then, the ghost eye curse on them will be solved. Sumu saw that Shirley Yang's hands were shaking with excitement, so he gently held her in his arms and comforted her silently until she calmed down. Just told everyone. Now that the Dragon Bone book has been found, it's time for us all to pack up and go out. Everyone nodded in agreement and began to pack their things. Fatty Wang looked around while packing. When he saw the coffin in the center of the Hades palace, he couldn't move his eyes. I said, "Are we leaving like this?" Fat Wang is a little unwilling. He has gone through so many difficulties to get here. Although they have gained something, they still feel that they are not willing to open the coffin to take a look. How about we open the coffin and take a look? Maybe there are other treasures in the coffin? Fatty Wang walked to the coffin and said. However, Hubei shook his head and rejected it. Better say goodbye. Why? Fatty Wang asked in confusion, his tone a little anxious. Hubei glanced at the coffin and said. There must be an expert inside this coffin. Not only did he not take the important Dragon Bone book for himself and put it as a burial object in the coffin, but even though those mechanisms seemed dangerous, he actually kept all the mechanisms for his backup. And even guided us along the way to find the Dragon Bone book. I think it's better not to disturb the senior's sleep. It's better for us to be in awe. Sumu didn't agree with Hubei's ideas. He knew that Hubei sometimes had pedantic ideas, but this was unacceptable. Lao Hu, actually sometimes you don't have to stick to the rules so rigidly. Sumu stepped forward and put his arm around Hubei's shoulders, and advised. Think about it, even if we don't take away those things, they will only be buried here and covered in dust. I know you have been secretly assisting the widows of your comrades. Hubei did not expect that Sumu actually knew about this. He looked at him in surprise and asked. How do you know? Sumu shook his head and said, don't worry about how I know. Think about it. With your meager income, even helping them is just a drop in the bucket. And you also know that there are many people like the widow of your comrade. You don't know. How many people can it help? Fatty Wang also echoed. Sumu is right. As long as we take those things to the West, we will definitely be able to exchange them for a lot of money. In this way, won't the people you help be able to live a little better? And we can help more people. Rather than letting those precious treasures stay in the coffin gathering dust, it would be better to take them out to help more people in need. What do you think? Lao Hu. Sumu and Fatty Wang looked at each other and saw Hubei's wavering, so they did not continue talking, leaving some time for Hubei to think about it. Hubei was silent, with a thoughtful look on his face. He had his own standards in his heart, but sometimes they were not always set in stone. He knew that what Sumu and Fatty Wang said was right. Even if he wanted to help the widows of his comrades, he really had to rely on his own abilities, and the little money he had was just a drop in the bucket. Thinking of those women and children whose lives were not very good, Hubei gritted his teeth and nodded fiercely, saying, "Okay, open the coffin." Fatty Wang suddenly smiled when he heard this and said, "Okay." As he said that, he quickly took out a big white candle from his backpack, then found it in the southeast corner and lit it. Sumu and Hubei stepped forward to look for the mechanism to open the coffin. After searching for a long time, they finally found it in a corner. Mechanism. With the combined efforts of the two, the lid of the coffin was finally opened. Inside was a corpse that had turned into withered bones after years of baptism. In addition to the corpse, there were actually many priceless treasures. Oh my God! There are so many babies. The moment Fatty Wang saw the scene in the coffin, his eyes almost turned green. Sumu didn't expect that there were so many good things in this coffin. Old Hu, look, I said there is nothing wrong with opening the coffin. If we had not opened the coffin just now, wouldn't these treasures have to stay in this coffin? Fat Wang winked and said something to Hubei, but the movements of his hands did not slow down at all. He opened his backpack and started loading things into it. Hubei let go after breaking through his own inner defenses. When Fatty Wang did it, he also started to put it in his bag. He had already figured it out. These things are not exclusive to him. When he goes out, he will pay back the money and then help the widows of his comrades, so that those who live in poverty can being able to live a better life can also enable those children to go to school well. Sumu was a step slower, but there were a lot of things in the coffin, enough for the few of them to share. The two girls, Shirley Yang and Ding Sishan, were not so brutal and direct. But they also picked some things they liked and packed them up. Soon, they divided up everything in the coffin. Everyone's backpacks were packed to the point where they could no longer fit. This trip to the wilderness was full of rewards. There is no point in staying here. After packing up, everyone decided to leave here. Hubei walked in front, Shirley, Yang Ding Sishan, and Wang Fatty walked behind him. Sumu said that he was postponed and walked at the end. Seeing them walking forward without looking back, Sumu quietly lagged behind a few steps, and then directly opened his personal space to the hidden compartments in the tomb. In just a moment, the secret compartments originally placed in the tomb chamber were opened. All the bright weapons were gone. All the bright weapons were put into the portable space by Sumu. Taking one last look at the empty Hades palace, Sumu turned around and left here happily. Sumu and the others were here after leaving the Hades palace. They walked along the cave for a long time. However, this maze of caves extended in all directions, with caves everywhere, which made everyone have difficulty looking at the entrance of the cave. At this time, a group of people stood at a fork in the road and looked at what appeared in front of them. There are 3 cave entrances and I don't know which way to choose. Now how to do? Fat Wang looked at the entrance of the cave and scratched his head. The others were also in trouble. If they couldn't find the correct exit, they might be trapped in this maze and die. Husband. Sumu. Sumu, what do you think? _ Tomb Raider, Mary Shirley Young at the beginning. Author, October is fierce and cute. Chapter 110. Sumu, what do you think? Everyone turned their expectant eyes to Sumu, hoping that Sumu could use his divine calculation ability to help everyone find a way out. Sumu did not delay and stood up directly. He stood on the 3rd floor. In the middle of the hole, he slowly closed his eyes under the expectation of everyone. The moment he closed his eyes, his senselessness had been raised to the highest level. At this moment, his 5 senses changed. He was quite sensitive, and he could even hear the slight sound of a small insect running on the ground in his ears. He carefully sensed the flow of air in the air, and felt the weak air flowing around everyone, and then gathered together. When they come together, they keep flowing in a certain direction. Found it? Sumyu opened his eyes suddenly, looked fixedly in one direction, then pointed at one of the 3 cave entrances and said, "Let's go this way." Everyone was overjoyed and walked towards the direction pointed by Sumyu without any hesitation. "Brother Su, you are really awesome. You can find the way out of this maze-like road just by feeling. I, the fat man, really admire you." Fat Wang simply admired Sumyu's intuition. After walking for a while, Sumyu could find the right one by feel at every fork in the road, and he never entered a dead end. Hu Bie and Wang like the fat man, his admiration for Sumyu has reached the level of a god. This kind of ability can no longer be understood by ordinary people. However, Sumyu does have many super abilities that ordinary people cannot understand. Such a perceptual ability compared with those, it's just childish. Sumyu was a little humble and felt very happy and enjoyed it. "Look at you like that." Shirley Yang knew from the look on his face that Sumyu must be feeling bad in her heart again, so she secretly stretched out her hand and pinched Sumyu's waist. She saw that his eyes were pretending to be fierce, but looking towards him with deep doting. When she looked over, Shirley Yang retracted her hand in embarrassment, and her steps moved faster. She would never admit that she was shy. Sumyu deliberately challenged Shirley Yang and stepped forward to pull her away. He held her hand and asked quietly, "What's wrong with me? Do you not like it?" Shirley Yang didn't expect Sumyu to be so straightforward, so she quickly raised her head to see the reactions of the others. But she saw that the others were looking at the road ahead seriously. Even Ding Sishan lowered her head and was cautious. They were walking as if they didn't even notice what was happening on their side. "How, you haven't answered me yet?" Sumyu asked relentlessly. Shirley Yang blushed and whispered, "You. Where did I make trouble? It wasn't you first." "How can I have?" Shirley Yang was afraid that Sumyu would say something embarrassing regardless of the occasion, so she quickly interrupted him. "Then tell me, do you like it that your husband is so cool?" Shirley Yang rarely showed a little bit of coyness like a little daughter. She muttered for a long time before quietly responding, "I like it." Woo. Tisk tisk tisk. As soon as Shirley Yang finished speaking, Hu Bei and Fatty Wang in front made unexplained cheers. Apparently they had been eavesdropping just now. Even Ding Sishan, who had been walking silently, covered her mouth and shouted. He laughed softly and was obviously an eavesdropper. You, don't, leave us alone," you continue, "we didn't hear anything." Fatty Wang reached out his hand in a mean manner and made a gesture of greeting, but his expression didn't look tactful. Shirley Yang was really shy at this moment. Being heard flirting with Sumyu made Shirley Yang, who had always shown herself to be self-improving, really embarrassed. But then I thought about it, if Sumyu hadn't been so stubborn, there would have been no chance of being ignored by others, so I still have to blame Sumyu. Thinking of this, Shirley Yang stopped maintaining her posture and stepped forward directly to pinch Sumyu's waist again. Ouch! Sumyu twisted his waist and howled, causing everyone to burst into laughter again. Maybe it was because they had found what they were looking for, and everyone had gained a lot. Everyone's mood was no longer as heavy and tense as when they first arrived, and they could occasionally crack a few jokes to make people laugh. Walking along the entrance of the cave for an unknown length of time, the group of people discovered another robbery cave halfway along the way. "Lao Hu, come and take a look." Fat Wang stood at the edge of the robber's cave and waved to Hu Bie. Hu Bie stepped forward to check it and found that the robber's cave was very skillful. He couldn't help but thought deeply, this is different from the robber's cave we met when we came in before. It's exactly the same. I think it should have been written by the same senior expert. There seems to be something over there. Sumyu, who has excellent eyesight, suddenly pointed in a direction and said while scanning the surroundings, so everyone walked directly in the direction he pointed. Everyone didn't go far. Hubei was the first to see the fall in front of him. The remains on the ground were less than 10 meters away from the robbery cave. Strange, why did this man fall here? Shirley Yang was confused. Sumu and Hubei stepped forward to check, and then said in a somewhat regretful tone, this person should be the senior expert. How do you know? Shirley Yang asked. Sumu stretched out his hand to reveal the things in his hands, which were found on the body just now. Touch the golden talisman. Shirley Yang said in surprise. Even Fatty Wang was also surprised. Looking at the body on the ground, he said with regret, I don't know what happened, so that this senior expert could fall here. No one can know. Everyone, after feeling a little regretful, he looked at the things Sumu found out from the body. Apart from some gadgets, only the golden talisman was the most valuable. There's no use keeping this for me, fat man, I'll give this to you. Sumu glanced at the gold-touching talisman in his hand, and then threw it to Fatty Wang very casually. Fatty Wang still had a different look on his face. After taking the gold-touching talisman, he asked in shock, really give it to me? Ah! This thing is a good treasure to take to the grave. Sumu just gave it to him, which made him feel a little flattered. How? No. Then can I take it back? Sumu gestured to make a move. The fat man quickly put the gold-touching charm into his pocket, as if no one could steal it. Sumu just wanted to laugh. Shirley Yang also took out 2 gold-touching charms from the bag. Talisman, one was handed to Hubei, the other was handed to Ding Sishan. I have eaten Kailanja. This thing is of no use to me anymore, so I might as well give it to you. Hubei put it away without refusing, but Ding Sishan refused. Shirley Yang didn't force it either. Just looking at Ding Sishan's solemn look, she seemed to have something on her mind, which made her a little worried.